Hi, everybody. This is Elektra Yao, artist, visa lawyer, and entertainment lawyer. I'm doing a live today because on Friday I got asked a really interesting question that it's kind of multifaceted, which means that I don't think that I can answer and talk about all the different aspects of the business of the arts in one video. So I decided to make it into a series. So if you're watching and you're an artist or you're interested in getting into the arts or working in the arts, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, share this video. I think that I can provide a lot of valuable information based on my personal experience as an artist and as an attorney representing artists and creative professionals. So I'm live on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. So please watch, like, share, subscribe, and let's dive right into the topic at hand. So I got asked on Friday a very broad topic about the business of the arts and how to monetize art. And it's a very loaded question. So I invite everybody who's interested to kind of go on my artist coaching website and just take a look. And if you're interested, we can schedule a call to have a conversation. But if you're not ready yet and you're just at the point where you're looking for information or looking to kind of see what you can do with your artwork, that's fine too. This is going to be a series that I'm going to try to wrap up during this week, but I want to give you as much information as possible. So I think that, and I mentioned this on Friday, I think a lot of the times artists are conditioned to have this kind of starving artist mentality, especially those who are located in your city, just because of the romantic nature, the romanticism attached to being an artist in New York. Being such a city with a high cost of living, it's really hard sometimes to make ends meet with your artwork. And that's why, like I said, this mentality of the starving artist is romanticized, especially since us here in New York, we've got such a broad and expansive art history across multiple industries. But today I want to talk about two different ways for you to monetize your art. And I want to give you some real life examples so that you can kind of envision what you can do with your artwork. So the first example I'm going to give you is something that is highly utilized in the fashion and fine art world. I'll give you a real world example. So in fashion, there's always, or there tends to be a lot of collaboration between fashion designers and artists. And when I mean artists, I mean visual artists, fine artists, painters, and specifically works that are in the public domain. So there is a campaign out with Louis Vuitton, right? The handbag brand. And on the canvas or on the bag, it's not the traditional like Louis Vuitton print. It's actually the paintings of very famous fine artists like Matisse, for example. And this is a way for a brand. This is a great example of collaborating. So in Louis Vuitton's case, they did it with dead fine artists. But in your case, there's definitely synergy that can be found across multiple disciplines and multiple art forms. It's really up to you as a creative artist to figure out how you can successfully collaborate with people in different disciplines and different industries. I really like this way of exploring artwork because it's kind of like a double whammy. You get to explore your artwork and explore your expertise, but also collaborate, network, and meet other like-minded individuals, which is going to be another topic, hopefully this week, but the importance of really surrounding yourself with that creative energy and how that creative energy is very influential to who you are and what your art is. Obviously, there are examples of people in the art world like Van Gogh or J.D. Salinger, who were very famous for working on their own. But in today's world, I would suggest, because we're already isolated because of COVID, to kind of explore that aspect of your creativity. So there are definitely a lot of different ways for you to collaborate. Again, it's not just, doing what Louis Vuitton did and taking, artworks from the public domain and putting it on their bag. I mean, if you are a singer, right? A classically trained singer, you can collaborate with a performance artist and see what you can do. Performance art, I mean, is very expansive and very interesting, but how are we experiencing performance art now during COVID? This is actually a really great question. I didn't even think about it until now, but what is actually happening to performance art, and how are performance artists creating their work with the internet? I mean, I'd be very curious to see. And if you are a performance artist watching this, send me a video of what you're doing, because I'd love to see what's going on. But that's just one way for you to monetize your work, collaborating with an artist. And a second way to monetize your artwork is to cross industries. So what does crossing industries mean? And I want to give you a real life example of somebody who's done this. So I'm sure everybody has heard of Selena, the Tejano singer, American singer. And Selena obviously was a singer, that's what she did. She was the lead singer of a band, but she crossed over, or she was beginning to cross over into fashion and starting to design. She'd always, I guess, designed her attire on stage because that's just the type of artist that she was. But this is an example of a singer crossing industries, utilizing her singing and going into, or using that as an entryway into fashion. Now, again, these are questions that you have to ask yourself, and it's obviously very personal based on what you do as an artist. But for example, let's take the example of a singer. If you are a singer, right, a classically trained singer, and you want to continue or start to monetize off your work, you can actually start to audition for voiceover work. That's a way that you are utilizing your voice. You might not be utilizing it in the way that you envisioned, i.e. singing, but that is definitely a way to cross over into a different industry. A very obvious example that I deal with almost every single day is, for example, artists who are also teaching artists, meaning that they perform and do their work, whatever their work is, but they also have crossed into a different industry, which is the teaching arts, right? There are a number of different ways that you can collaborate with other artistic professionals and creative, and also cross over into industries. A really silly example that I want to give you is for all my visual artists out there, for all of my photographers and my fine artists and my painters. There's a whole industry out there about in the film industry for artists whose work is needed on set. So for example, let's say there is a scene in a film or a TV show of an art collector. Well, there are actual people who are responsible for collecting art that will be in that scene. Now, again, this is a way to, number one, cross industries, and number two, a way for you to get exposure with your artwork. So again, I think that this is really important for you to realize as an artist that you're not really limited to just creating and doing your artwork, whatever it is, but you also, like I said, can collaborate with other artists and cross over into different industries. So if you are a visual artist and a photographer and you want more exposure, start to do the research and figure out how to get your artwork in these film scenes or these TV scenes where it happens all the time, where there is a set designer and the set designer is actually looking for this type of artwork. So those were two tips that I gave you, or two different ways to monetize your artwork. I think that, like I said, it was a very loaded question on Friday, just because of the nature of the topic. The business of the arts is actually really, really complicated, because the art world, or arts and creativities, is kind of like a mixture of different areas of law, right? So you've got artist visas, so within the immigration sphere, you've got trademark and copyrights, which is the IP sphere. And then you've got art law, which is basically, consignment agreements, agency agreements, all these different types of contracts to govern the sale of your artwork within a gallery. And even within that, there's actually a really interesting subset of different rights that are now being explored for artists. So like resale rights. So let's say you are a painter and you have your artwork at Gagosian Gallery, for example, and somebody buys your artwork. Well, you really want to get an attorney to draft an agreement to ensure your resale rights, meaning the collector who buys your work and then chooses to resell your work. Well, you have a stake in the sale of your artwork. This is something that's fairly new, but it's really interesting for artists to continue to have ownership of their work even beyond the sale. So artists and creators, really, you guys have immigration law, IP law, art law, entertainment law, so different production contracts. So it's very, very important to really, I think, center yourself and understand the different legal frameworks that surround you and your artwork, and also business law. The idea or the decision to open up an LLC or not is a very strategic decision. Of course, there is the element of protection, right? You want to maintain your personal assets separate from your business assets, but there's also that element of marketing and how you want to present yourself to the world. For example, right now, what's really interesting, what's really developing is the domain .art. So if you are an artist and you really want to continue to speak to the world on multiple platforms and exclaim to the world your artistry, your creativity, getting a .art domain is not such a bad idea, especially since this is something that's relatively new right now. Many different aspects of how to manage and structure a creative and artistic career. But I think the first thing to do is that mindset shift, like I mentioned earlier, which is basically no longer acquiescing to the starving artist mentality, no longer submitting to what that idea of an artist is, however romantic it may be. So that's the first step that I think that is really, really important for artists and creatives to undertake. And the second step is to figure out different venues or different avenues to be able to monetize your work. And I gave you 2 avenues. I actually give you 3 avenues today. The first avenue is collaboration. So collaborating with a person in a different industry. The second avenue is crossing over industries. So going from, for example, art to visual art to film and TV, and having your work there. And I use the example of Selena, the singer, who is also a fashion designer. So I really invite you guys to think about your creativity and your work in this way, because then it will make the subsequent conversations that we have a lot more clear and less abstract and a lot more focused on strategy, right? So again, the first thing is that mindset shift. Forget about that idea of being a starving artist. Really empower yourself with the mentality that you can have a 6-figure career. Many artists do. There are very famous, wealthy artists out there, and there's no reason why you can't be one of them. The only thing that's stopping you is really, like I said, mindset and understanding the legal framework that will govern whatever's going on in your artwork, and finding those different avenues to monetize, and understanding what your rights are and how far you can push to get those rights protected contractually. So I hope that this was helpful. Hopefully our next conversation tomorrow, I can focus a little bit more on like the soft side of things, maybe like the marketing aspect of being an artist and really seeing yourself as a business. So I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.